everybody, Eddie Heinzelman, One Louder Guitar Service. Thanks for dropping by the shop today. Wanted to tell you a little bit about what I'm working on and show you something that you can look for on your guitar. So let's take a look at what came through the shop and is sitting on my workbench today. Today's project is this Martin & Company OMJM John Mayer signature model acoustic guitar. The owner brought this into the shop asking me if I could set up the guitar because the action was too high and he had some intonation issues. The one thing about acoustic guitars, when you look at their action and they say their action is too high, there's only a few things that you can adjust on an acoustic guitar. Now on an electric guitar you have typically individual saddles. The saddles themselves are adjustable up and down. On an acoustic guitar you don't have that. You only have a straight saddle across. So the only way to adjust the action on an acoustic guitar essentially is by adjusting the truss rod, if that applies, and then lowering or carving the nut and the saddle to make sure they're at a decent height. In this particular case, the first thing you always do when you look at a guitar is you take measurements before you even start to work on it. Here's what I found on this guitar. The nut action, you take the action at the first fret to measure the action at the nut. It measured fine. It was 1/64th on the first string, 2/64ths on the sixth string, that gradual increase. It looked fine at the nut. The relief is the bow of the neck. On a string action gauge you have markings down here for relief, and this says height from fret top to bottom of the string in inches. So usually we try to do relief at 1/100ths of an inch. 0 is just a flat fingerboard. Some people like their fingerboards really flat. What you don't want is an overbow. This one had a significant underbow, so the relief was actually about 3 to 400ths of an inch. That meant that the action was right around 8/64ths on the sixth string at the 12th fret. That's really high. So I tightened the truss rod, flattened out the neck, and I only saved about a 1/64th of an inch in the action lowering. So there's something else going on with this guitar, and since the nut measured okay, it's got to be down at the bridge saddle side. So this is one thing that if you have an action that's too high or too low and you do the measurements and something doesn't seem right, the next thing you need to check is your neck angle. So what does neck angle mean? Well, it's the angle of the neck coming across the body to the bridge. And if your neck angle is too high, okay, then that means your neck is slanted upwards and your action is going to be too low. And potentially you'll get a buzz in the strings. And you go, why is this buzzing, or the action's really low, and you adjust the saddles up and you still can't get them high enough. Conversely, if the neck angle is too low, it means it's angled down, and so your action's going to be too high. It's geometry, triangles and stuff. How do we measure it? We're going to take this straight edge and just lay it across the frets, from the first fret all the way down. What you're going to see with this close-up shot is the straight edge hits below the top of the bridge. What you typically want to see is your straight edge would go right across and skim right across the top of the bridge. Not the top of the saddle, the top of the bridge itself. There's only two things that you can do to adjust a guitar where the neck angle is too low or is off in this particular case. The first thing is you have to do a neck reset. What's a neck reset? It's where you remove the neck, shim it, put it back together in the proper alignment and the proper neck angle. That's the preferred way. That's the way that these should be fixed. All acoustic guitars at one point or another are going to need a neck reset. It's the nature of acoustic guitars. It's wood, humidity, use, everything else. Wood moves, it breathes, it shrinks over time. The top shrinks, the guitar shrinks, the neck adjusts, the tension of the strings, the way you play it, the way you travel with it, all of these things. Even if you just set it in a closet for years upon years, eventually acoustic guitars are going to need neck resets. The other thing about neck resets is they're a fairly expensive repair. They can easily run in the $400 to $600 range depending on the guitar. Some of them are very difficult to remove, and some of them take a lot of work. You really never know until you dig into it what kind of effort's going to be involved. This customer didn't want to do the neck reset due to the cost, and I totally relate. The only other option at that point is to shave down the saddle. So when this guitar came in, the saddle was about 1/8 of an inch taller than the top of the bridge. So it had quite a bit of saddle material still on it. So what I did was I shaved it down. How do you shave down a saddle? Well, what I have is I went to Lowe's and bought these tiles. They fit sandpaper perfectly. So I have a couple different grits and a couple different tiles of sandpaper. I have a 220, I have a 440, 400. I have a 600, I have a 1500. So I have tiles with different grits of sandpaper. I took the saddle, I used my rule and my magnifying glass to mark off 2/64 of an inch. I then took my straight edge, drew it across the base of the saddle, and at that point I used the sanding blocks, I used the tile sanding blocks, and I sanded evenly and slowly down to the line that I drew on the saddle. You have to go really slow and even. You know, when you're sanding, you don't want to put pressure on one end and not the other. However, I did notice that it was taller on the bass side than it was the treble side. Now again, remember, it measured 6/64 and 8/64 initially. So that's 2/64 between the first string and the sixth string. Normally, I only want the span to be 1/64 in action between the first and the sixth string. So what I got this down to is 4/64 on the first string and 5/64 on the sixth string. Now this particular customer is a fairly aggressive player. He plays no pick, he plays with his fingers, and he plays pretty hard. So that's why I left the action a little higher. That's how I adjusted this guitar, brought the action down so that he can play it more comfortably. The guitar is eventually going to need a neck reset. It's going to have to at some point. The thing is, now I've shaved the saddle down, there's nowhere else to go. The seasons change. If the guitar moves a bit more, then may eventually have to go back. If he doesn't do the neck reset, he's going to have to recut another saddle, make it taller, make it, you know, who knows, shorter again, I don't know. But at this point, this is the fix for now. This is the fix that he wanted. I like to give my customers options, and so this was the option that he chose. This will buy him some time so he can go out and gig and perform, and that way then he can save up money to eventually do the neck reset. So if you have a guitar, electric or acoustic, and for some reason adjusting the saddles doesn't get your action down to where you think it needs to be, or doesn't get it up high enough to stop buzz, use a straight edge and check your neck angle, because that very well could be part of the problem. So what else is going on today? I have a friend of mine, Connor Mowery, who is coming over to the shop. He's got a session this week, and so I'm going to let him borrow one of my guitar cabs. So thanks again everybody for watching. I really appreciate your support. Hit that subscribe button if you would. Hit the little bell for notifications. Share the video. I really appreciate you being here. And as always, stay tuned.